I'm reading a good book right now titled Karl Marx and the Satanic Roots of Communism by Richard Wurmbrand. And one of the things he emphasizes is the communist obsession with this idea of a permanent revolution. And he talks about how oftentimes their behavior throughout the years and the various manifestations of communism in different governments around the world, how they often reveal that they're in it for the destruction itself, not for the end goal. The satanic side or true face of communism oftentimes reveals itself in this uh, just desire to inflict pain and misery on everyone, including those that were loyal to the cause. Betrayal has been extremely common amongst communist regimes. Um, Again, it's just this desire to cause misery and destruction, which of course is one and the same with that of the devil, who wants to, make more of a hell on earth in opposition to, God's design and intention, and that of the Messiah to create heaven on earth. So this idea of the permanent revolution, I realized, coincides actually with what we know of in the West, in the United States in particular, as emergency powers. So this might seem like an odd correlation, but I'll explain how the two are related. So you may have noticed, as many people have, that governments often use a crisis of one sort or another as the vehicle for them to then carry out some sort of tyrannical action, to gain more power, right? So there's just countless examples of this in history, up until the current day. It's just a repeating cycle. In the name of safety, they claim the right to have exceptional power, right? Emergency powers. What does that mean exactly? It means that a power that they don't normally have, they do have if there's an emergency, right? So what does that mean? It means that the power that they're exercising during an emergency would not be considered acceptable in a non-emergency situation. And why is that? Why would the power be considered unacceptable under normal circumstances? Because it's especially abusive, right? So normally the government can't get away with claiming ownership of your body and having the power to coerce you to inject into your body whatever they want you to inject into your body, and to put whatever medical device they want you to put on your body, right? Like normally that would be considered medical tyranny. It would be considered communist, right? Because it's claiming ownership, the state claiming ownership of the private property, which is your own body, right? Normally the state closing down businesses and churches would be considered unacceptable, right? Oh, but there's a health crisis, right? There's an emergency. So now they supposedly have these emergency powers, right? So just over and over again, right? Oh, there was this attack. Never mind whether we were involved in said attack or not. We're now declaring martial law. We have emergency powers once again. Now we're going to, um, you know, start curfews and have, lockdowns and invade everyone's privacy and do searches and seizures that we normally couldn't do, right? Always, again, in the name of safety, right? There's a famous quote by Albert Camus, I believe it. I'm probably paraphrasing here and not remembering it exactly, but the welfare of the people is always the alibi of tyrants, right? So this is an old game, but returning to the idea or the term permanent revolution that is associated with communism, I realized there is at least a parallel there, because really the emergency powers idea isn't just in operation when there's like a major event that occurs. It's actually in operation all the time, right? It's this permanent use of abuse of power in the name of safety, right? Because that's actually fundamentally what government is, as far as what its legitimacy is supposedly based on, right? Because they look at society as basically an emergency situation in and of itself. Just people on the planet Earth. It's like, that's an emergency. Because they say, without their control, right, there would just be utter chaos and destruction all the time. So really, those that are statist and try and legitimize government are basically making the emergency powers argument. They're saying, there's this emergency, there's this crisis, but on a fundamental level, it's not, a terrorist attack or a health crisis or anything like that. It's just society itself. It's just people. We are the crisis. Humanity is a crisis, and they are here to be our saviors, right, with their emergency powers. So it's another way in which it's revealed that all government is actually fundamentally communist. A lot of people think that there's this like divide. There's socialist countries and then there's free countries. But all governments are based on the abuse of extortion, right? All governments are based on this idea of treating people as livestock, right? Oh, you were born on this piece of land on planet Earth? Well, that happens to be within the borders of my farm for humans. And so you're now, subject to my extortion and control. That's fundamental to the communist view of humanity. People are there to be managed and controlled by the ruling class. And so there's just a spectrum of the severity of that abuse and control. But again, it's all based on extortion, which is fundamentally abusive. And, here in the United States, I never tire of pointing out, even though it always seems to go in one ear and out the other, that income tax, having your labor taxed, right? So I think it's been estimated, like generally speaking, about 3 months of the year for most people, approximately 3 months of the labor like that you're doing at work to taxes, right? So you're actually working for the government 3 months out of every year, approximately, on average, kind of, for most people, working class people, right? And the income tax was introduced in 1913, right? Along with central banks, Federal Reserve. Both of those are pillars in the Communist Manifesto. Like, if you read the book, the actual book, Communist Manifesto by Marx and Engels, in there, you'll find they say, what we need to bring this agenda forward, and two of those things are an income tax and central banks. So, again, this idea that some governments are, free, or, some states are free and others are socialist and communist, it's really a farce. It's all just different shades of communism. And it's all just this fundamental farce and deception and, bamboozlement of humanity, of emergency powers being exercised, which is really just this permanent revolution being exercised, right? Just permanent abuse in the name of a new world order of peace, justice, equity, blah, blah, blah. But really, it's just the devil having free reign over the people, through the institutions that he controls, causing immense suffering and oppression that does not need to be, but it's accomplished through mainly convincing people that actually on a fundamental level, humanity itself is a crisis that needs to be managed by these powers that be. And so they need to be given the power to do so. And that's the main blunder of statism. And you could say also, the main revelation of those that abandon their belief in politics as a means of bettering the world. All right, thanks for listening.